Hello, Abnormal Investigations. I've got another encounter for you. This one comes out of the UK, and I think you will really enjoy this one. I think it's going to be a different area, so I was kind of interested in it, so we'll go ahead and get into it. My name's Jessica. I live in Scotland, UK. I won't say exactly where, but it's pretty rural. I've lived here my whole life and never spent more than my 29 years anywhere else. Born and raised Highland country girl is all I've ever known. I've never had any spooky supernatural experiences or creepy ghost stories, as my username suggests that I sent to you because I will not use my real name. I wasn't a believer in any of that. I'm no stranger to the woods or to the glens. I camp, hike, swim in nature for fun. Even when I'm at home, I like to chill out on the porch on my phone. I always felt so comfortable in nature. I suppose it helps knowing that the UK has no really dangerous animals, and that the fact that I live a good jaunt away from even the smallest town, so no people to worry about either. It was completely private and secluded, just how I like it. But a few days ago, I had an encounter, and honestly, I'm not really sure what happened. I've told a few close friends, one of which encouraged me to submit my story to you, Mike. She says it'll help me come to terms with what it was and to get it off my chest, and that you give good advice at the end of your videos. Despite the stereotypes about the Scottish Highlands, we do actually get summer here, and it can get really hot and sunny on the right day. It was that sort of day, and I figured I'd go to the small lake about 40 minutes from my house and take a dip. The walk there was just like every other time. Woods, fields, and hills, more woods than a clearing, and then the lake. It's my slice of heaven. It's so beautiful. The water trickles down from higher up, so it's really clear. Honestly, it looks like something out of a fancy commercial. I threw off my clothes just down to my swimming suit and jumped in. The lake's about the width of an average canal for reference, and deep enough that I can only just touch the bottom with my tippy toes. Though granted, I'm not the tallest. I swam for a while and just enjoyed cooling off. For the record, it was about 11:30 in the morning. And that's when the first weird thing happened. A loud ruckus in the bushes made me jump, as all of a sudden 3 deer came tearing through, jumped through a shallower part of the water and off into the other side of the woods, the way I'd come up from. Now this is really strange. I'm not quite when I swim. I splash around and typically sing to myself if I'm in the mood, which I was. The deer around here aren't used to humans, so they avoid coming anywhere near you. I'd only ever seen a few from miles away through my whole life, so for them to run toward me, and me being as noisy as I was very strange for them to act in that manner. In hindsight, I know why they were running so blindly, but we'll get to that. I was a little uneasy after that. I knew that rationally they were probably just in season or something, but it just didn't sit right with me. After a few more minutes, I got out of the water and decided to walk back home. Usually I towel off by the river, redress, and then head up to the other part of the land to dry off and enjoy the sun. I threw on my shirt and trousers as quickly as I could and made a move back down the way I'd come, and the deer had gone. Yes, I was still soaking wet. I just figured the warm weather would dry me off, but I made one really stupid mistake. Thanks to not wanting to towel off around trying the laces, I left my boots on, and I left my boots in the bag and opted to walk home barefooted. Heading back to the woods seemed very strange. Birds were very vocal. Bugs were buzzing like mad, and I kept catching glimpses of wild rabbits. Everything was heading away, downwards downwind, in quite a hurry, just like the deer had been. I was getting more and more freaked out, which is very out of character for me. I picked up my pace from a usual walk to just shy of a jog. I found myself looking around frantically, as if I was trying to spot something. Though I had no idea what, I can't say. I had some feeling of being watched or stalked, just like I was unwelcome, in the wrong place kind of feeling. Thanks to the animals going nuts, mainly the birds up in the branches, I could not hear much of anything else. That's why it took me off guard. I was looking around like I have been for nearly 10 minutes, but this time, as I swung my eyes to the right, I saw something new. I saw a figure, quite clearly. It was keeping pace with me, shadowing me, and staring straight at me. I'm still not 100% sure what it looked like. It was very slender, had a thin layer of stark white hair, and moved in a smooth but loping manner. I know its head was turned to face me, but as strange as it sounds, I have no clue what its face really looked like. Maybe a dog? It's like I saw it and my eyes just slipped off it, like instinctively averted my gaze to the trees and to the bushes. My heart skipped a beat and I almost tripped over myself in sheer shock. I can't quite remember my thought process, but it was something along the lines of, "What is that? How long has it been keeping up with me? What does it want? What should I do?" All at once, some trees came between me and the thing I'd glimpsed, and I just stopped dead. Every fiber of my body was screaming like an alarm, bells that was in danger, but not to run. I don't know why, but my immediate thought was to climb the nearest tree and to take it from there. In equal measure, I both wanted to see it again to figure out what the hell it was, but also to never see it again or to lay my eyes on it. My whole body was shaken to the core. I felt sick and dizzy, trying to wrap my head around it. As strange as it sounds, when I'd seen it, for that split second I felt offended. Like subconsciously deep down I was genuinely disgusted that this thing was there, that it actually existed, so close that I could see the bushes being pushed down as it clambered through them. My messed up state aside, I made it up the tree to try to catch my breath and decently large branch. I had sit on the larger part of the balance myself, by using my feet to press against the other part of the trunk. It was one of those trees that grows into a kind of a Y shape. For a few moments I sat there, slowly scanning the forest floor below, looking for anything. It was dead silent now. All the freaked out animals had booked it far away. It was just me, my tree, my pounding heart, and the consuming fear that it was still around. I didn't know if I just hadn't heard it approach because of the birds, or if it was just that silent. The idea only made me feel even more queasy. After what felt like ages, I spotted the slightest rustle in a patch of bushes, and then I heard it, breathing or maybe sniffing. It was like a dog, but very quiet. It almost seemed to be coming from all around me. Then the bushes rustled again, and then it stopped. I was petrified, staying as still as I could and desperately listening for anything that stuck up. That damn tree is where I was now. Now this is where my haste in leaving the river came back to mess with me. I felt something on my right foot, something small, barely even noticeable at first, but then another and more, like little tiny touches, super light but moving. I tilted my head to see, only to realize that cause. It was ants, tiny black specks pouring out of the little holes of the bark and toward my feet. Thankfully, the ants here in the UK don't tend to be the biting or stinging sort. I almost wish they had have been in retrospect. It would have been easier to ignore. No, these little guys did something far worse. They tickled. At first they were just about noticeable, but as more and more climbed onto my feet, it quickly started to make me become unbearable. You'd think when you're scared to death you'd be able to ignore something so silly. Hell, normally I'm not even a ticklish person, but my senses were heightened to the max, paranoid about this thing that was still down in the woods somewhere. Just as long as I was going to pull my feet away to relocate how I was sitting, I saw it again. It just strolled out brazenly into the open, its head held high, sniffing the air. My eyes tried to move off of it from sheer reflex, but this time I forced myself to look at it. It was huge, hunched over. It still stood taller than anyone I'd ever met. Long bony arms resting on the ground like a gorilla. A visible spine pushing white fur. Its face, though, I've never seen anything like it. I can't even think of an animal to compare it to. I guess the best I could say, it was like a very malnourished cowhead. It had no horns and large pointed ears like a canine, but the facial structure was just pure disfigurement. That's when I noticed several things all at once. Its mouth was slightly open, drooling and lined with mismatched jagged teeth. Its nostrils were bloodied, with one completely collapsed, and finally it was looking straight at me. Here's the thing, though. It was blind. It had these sticky, pus-filled, milky eyes. It was looking straight at me, sniffing. But it had no idea I was a few meters away. I could have spat and probably hit it. I tried to stay as still as humanly possible, staring at this abomination. The ants, however, had different plans. When I say they were covering my feet, I mean it. I was having to balance myself by pressing just against the tree bark. Like I said earlier, I'm not a tall girl, and this meant that they were all over the undersides of my poor feet. I couldn't even move my hand to cover my mouth with how I was balancing. It was insane. It was staring down, this completely unnatural thing, and all I could do was try not to giggle. I tried to move one foot away, but the second I so much as knocked a leafy branch, the creature's ears twitched and its head snapped to where the sound came from. Putting my foot back, however, only seemed to shake the bark and cause even more ants to come out, exploring. The creature was coming closer, slowly walking toward the tree, sniffing so loudly it was almost wheezing. It reached the bottom of the tree and lifted its head up. Then came its first arm. It was so long it almost reached to where I was immediately sitting. I saw its hand, a gnarled mess of curved claws jutting out of its knuckles, almost like that of a sloth. Its claws sunk into the bark like it was nothing. Then it reared up, and what I can tell, it was preparing to climb. I was weighing up my options. Should I jump out of the tree and make a run for it? But there was no way I'd outrun this thing from as tall as this thing was. Probably break my ankle, and then I would for sure be eaten. My other option seemed to be staying still and hoping that somehow it missed me. But I knew from so how close it was, it's likely managed to get my scent. Then ever present were my little tormentors. Just as I thought, I was going to either pass out or let out a few whimpers as I had begun to cry. My trembling lips, something no short of a miracle happened. In the distance, a sound rang out. It was quite quiet, but in such a silence, its sound rang out. A great sound. It was a car door shutting. The creature's whole body twisted and tore off into the woods at a terrifying speed. It even used its hands to feel as it ran and sniffed, its fists the size of the hole of a tree where its claw had been. No sooner did I have the chance, I snatched my feet from the ants and covered my mouth and let out a mixture of long repressed hysterics. I was screaming for help. A hunter come running over to where I was at. He was feeding his deers and checking his deer stand, which was luckily close to where I had climbed the tree. He put me in his truck and took me home, and on the way home he told me stories of cows he had been missing, calves, and even the larger cows having large gnashes and gashes on them and even missing parts of their bodies like something had eaten from them. Mike, I believe I was lucky to get away that day. What do you think it was? Well, it almost sounds like a few things. A Wendigo. Sounds like it could be a dog man. It could even be some altered creature that's been, studied or whatever that the government could have made and released. It sounds like it is hunting that area. I think you're lucky that you weren't attacked by climbing that tree. I don't know in a situation like that if climbing a tree is the best idea, but it seems like it worked in your, situation. But I probably wouldn't be climbing a tree if something was after me, because if it would have decided to climb that tree and then that farmer or hunter wouldn't have shown up, that would have been really bad. It was definitely hunting you. With it being blind, I would say that it was probably older. Probably, I would say on its way out. But in any aspect of that, something that large doesn't matter if it's old or not. It's still very dangerous to us because of its size and, ominous strength. So, yeah, I think you're just lucky to get out of there. I wouldn't go out there alone anymore. Don't go alone. And I would just try to avoid the area if I was you. Find you a different place to walk and relax, and always take a friend with you. That would be my advice. Thanks for listening, guys. Until next time, keep your head on a swivel. Don't be something's dinner. And I hope you enjoyed one from across the pond, guys, over in the UK. Thank you for sending that in. I hope we get a lot more of those, guys. We'll see you on the next one, guys. Thank you for your support, and smash that like button.